Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Would the clerk please take the attendance?
Representative Miller,
Here.
Representatives Pice,
Present.
Stone,
Here.
Young,
Here.
Kofia,
Here.
Devendorf, Fitzgerald,
Here.
Reinigen,
Here.
Nyer,
Here.
Vanderwall,
Present.
Roth,
Here.
Beerline,
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Rep. Pius moves to adopt the minutes from May 10th. We will now hear a presentation from Herb Herbrock, representing Michigan Allied Poultry Industries, and he'll be giving a presentation on Herbrock Farms egg producers.
Good morning, and thank you for having me today. Chair Miller, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about chickens and eggs this morning. That's what we do. I'm representing Herbrooks as well as Michigan Allied Poultry. I'm accompanied by Dr. Nancy Barr, from the Executive Director of Michigan Allied Poultry. So I'll talk a little bit today about Herbrooks and also just the chickens and eggs in our state in general. So really appreciate the opportunity to do this today. Thank you. So Herbrooks is an egg producer. We're headquartered in Saranac in Ionia County, and we have 6 locations in that county. We are a Michigan-based company. We grew up here and have spent all of our time here. We also have operations now in Indiana and Pennsylvania, but we still remain headquartered in Michigan. We are a family business. Here's a shot of the family. Everybody that's in that picture is either has worked for the company, does work for the company, or will work for the company someday. Pretty much compulsory, but we really enjoy being a family business, and that's served us really well. So as of today, in my generation, which we call the 3rd generation, there's 2 left, my brother Greg and I, who many of you know, and then 6 from what we call Gen 4, our kids, working in the business, and probably going to move us out to pasture pretty soon, we think. So it's an exciting time for us. Our culture is that we serve the bird. Everything we do, because everything we sell comes from a bird. We produce eggs. We don't do anything else. We don't have Plan B, so we're working really hard to make Plan A work well for us. But this is our culture, and everything we do is to provide everything we can to make her thrive in her environment, whether it's the feed, the air, the water, the care that she receives, in whatever environment she lives in. That's our goal, is to make her thrive. And of course, then that kind of trickles down to the rest of our operation, whether it's taking care of our employees or taking care of our customers. But it all starts with taking good care of the hens that do all the heavy lifting for us. So growth was never really something that we really set out to do. We believe growth is a byproduct of doing the job well, and we've been blessed with good opportunities. So today, we're about 10 million chickens, a little over 1,000 employees, and we don't watch this closely, but we probably rank about 8th in the nation in the size of our company. So a little more about Michigan. This is a graph that shows the top egg-producing states in the country. And you can see Michigan is big. We are 7th in the nation. Iowa has a lot more chickens than Michigan, of course. But the egg business is big in Michigan. And we are here today to represent the rest of the egg producers as well. And I can tell you, because they're all personal friends, and we all work together. We trade eggs with each other. Really, really, really great folks that you've got that produce the eggs in Michigan. And good companies, good people, all family businesses. And so you're well represented with the eggs that are produced in our state. So what happened last year? Eggs was in the news a lot, and we had, as you all know, a major case of avian influenza. Avian influenza took out about 44 million egg layers in our country last year. It was a long duration by our standard event. Took place for almost an entire year of last year, where birds were still dying from the avian influenza. And we were battling it, thank goodness. No egg layers in Michigan were hit with the disease. I think that's a testament to a lot of things, but the good producers that I mentioned before. So it was an interesting event, taking out 15% of the flock. So there's about 320 million hens in the country. So when you take out that many, it was the chaos that made the news last year, and all the high egg prices that happened. In 2015, just 7 years ago, we had an event as well. It was a short duration event that lasted just a few months, but took out almost as many birds. But the price event was much shorter in 2015 and 2016 than last year. So this is a chart that kind of shows the sporadic nature of what happened last year and what made the news. The green line represents the commodity or the wholesale egg price last year. And you can see over on the left, we were in the $3 range. And at the end of the year, we ended at over $5 a dozen was the wholesale egg price for eggs. And that's not set by the producers. Egg producers don't set prices. They basically follow the commodity prices like lots of others. We do things a little differently. We sell some that way, but we sell most of our eggs on a cost-based type of structure. But you can see the red line starting in 2023, yep, we started out over $5 a dozen. And if you notice where it is today at less than $1 a dozen, that's pretty dramatic and created some real interesting times in our world, let's say. And when you get down to the price that we're at today, the commodity price is less than the cost of production, what it costs us all to produce the eggs. And in 2015, the high egg price is followed by 2 years of losses for the industry. So we don't know what will happen, but if we stay free from diseases, more cases of avian influenza this year, I think we can expect prices to stay low. What can we do to prevent this going forward? Our main tool battling diseases, specifically avian influenza, but any disease is biosecurity, meaning keeping the outside out, keeping the inside in, and keeping any disease away from our birds. So that's something that egg producers in general are hyper diligent about. We could talk for a long time about that, but it's from truck washing to clothing changes to knowing who is entering your barns, so that no one that owns birds or has been around birds would go into your barns, because people can carry the disease to them. Not necessarily having it, but just on your shoes, step in something outside, take it inside the building. That's how the disease can move around. So all the people that are in giving care to our birds, they change all their clothes. We have kind of a street side and a farm side, a specific line of separation to keep the outside out. So moving forward, though, we believe that vaccine would be a good tool in our toolbox, and there's a lot of talk happening in our industry about that now. So the other big thing that's happening in our world is the move to cage-free, and the move to that Michigan is taking, where next year, by the end of the year, Michigan will be a cage-free state. In other words, it won't be allowed to have birds housed in a cage system by the end of 2024, or sold as a shell egg in retail or food service. So this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what's happening across the country. You can see it's a patchwork of states that are enacting different laws for cage-free. Michigan has a pretty straightforward path. little more specific here, California and Massachusetts are finished. They're cage-free states. Some of the others are either in process, they're moving forward. Like Michigan, we have a very specific date, or they're still trying to figure it out, which is the case. One of the things that's challenging for us, because we move eggs into lots of states, is no two states' rules look the same. So we have to kind of abide by a lot of different rules going into different locations, labeling requirements and everything else that comes with the housing requirements for the different states. Here's an idea, a list of, these are just retail companies that made commitments a few years ago to be cage-free. Some of them are already done, but these were commitments that were at least planned to be made by 2025. And that's what Michigan law lines up with, was these commitments that were made by retail. That's going to be a challenge in order to get that all done. This chart shows the blue line representing the need. These are bird numbers. Based on the commitments on the previous page, these are how many birds we would need to have cage-free to fill what those retailers sell on the previous page. So you can see today we're at the 2023 range. We're kind of, it shows that we're in parity between caged and cage-free. Well, we're close, but in order to make all those commitments, you can see from the red line being what's either in production today or planned to be constructed. We're going to, as a nation, we're going to fall short of making those commitments. So some of those will be backed off. What that will look like, I don't know for sure. The good news today is Michigan has a plan. Michigan's egg producers have a plan, and we're ready for what Michigan's rule says that we need to do. That's just a shot of, parting shot of some birds in a cage-free environment. That's what it looks like in our houses. This one happens to be an organic house. They're looking outside, deciding if they want to go outside or not. Some like it outside, some don't, but it's their choice. So thank you for the opportunity to share that with you today. Nancy and I are happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you for that presentation. I have a few questions. People are demanding high-quality, ethically sourced eggs. And can you tell us how pasteurized eggs are, what they are exactly in this process?
Are you referring to pasteurized as
Yes.
in a heat-treated?
Yes,
A heat-treated egg?
yes.
So that would be in the egg products world, primarily used for a food service type of situation where, and we do egg breaking in our side of the world, but basically pasteurized egg means it's been taken from the shell in most cases and then ran through the heat process system, cooled back down to kill any potential bacteria or things that might be there. So basically any egg that winds up in food service would be pasteurized. There is a small amount of eggs that are pasteurized still in the shell and able to be used that way. But it's a pretty small, it's a difficult process, and it's a pretty small amount of them being done that way. Is that anything you want to add to that?
Nothing. Yep.
And one more question, if I may. Does your organization, does your company donate any eggs back to the community, say for charitable events or different organizations who are helping out communities in need?
Oh, thank you for that. And in fact, all of the Michigan producers do donate eggs. Our company last year donated just over 2 million eggs to the various food banks and all across the state. That last year was a tough year for eggs, so we were able to donate. Usually our target is 1 million eggs a year, and last year we did 2 million.
That's incredible. Thank you. We'll now move on to others. State Representative Vanderwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. As I drive by one of your facilities every week when we come to Lansing, it's always fascinating to see. A couple questions. First, on the moving to cage-free, what or if anything will happen in production? Will they produce more eggs? I guess the first start is what's the average hen lay in a day? Moving to cage-free, will it enhance more egg laying, or are we going to have to bring more hens on to meet our daily? And then I'll have one other question after that.
It's a great question. So in a perfect world, what we would call 100% production would mean every bird would lay 1 egg per day. When you go through a bird's life, a week of their life is about like a year of our lives. So when they're 18 weeks old, they're basically fully grown, mature. When they're in their 20s and 30s weeks of age, kind of like us as humans, they lay a lot of eggs. They may lay an egg for 5, 6 days in a row, and then they take a day off. And then they start that cycle over again. We call that the clutch. As they get older, again, kind of like us, they get into their 60s, 80s weeks old, they take a few more days off. And that's basically how they go. With cage-free, our goal is to get the production the same. It today isn't the same. It's a few less. And they also eat a little bit more feed to produce eggs, just because they're more active. So they burn off a few more calories to do that. But it takes up more space. The buildings, basically, it just takes more physical space because the birds are allowed more space and to do all those activities. So, but at the end, when we're converting from conventional or cages to cage-free, we'll have roughly the same number of birds.
Very good. And if I may, Madam Chair, the next part is just the function of when you were in the cages. I know that you harvested the litter. I'm going to say the chicken litter, and of course the production, it would be sold to other farms. Moving to cage-free, what are we going to see? Is that litter production going to still be viable? Or what is that going to cause for your business if you can't sell that litter to another farm?
Yep, great question. And the producers in the state, we all do it just a little bit differently, but the litter would still have the same value. It's a really good product. In our case, we dehydrate it, we sanitize it, we pelletize it, we crumble it, we screen it. So we're making products, products that ultimately end up, in many cases, in the home improvement stores. We end up for ingredients for recognizable names, let's say. We also sell to row crop farmers. So yeah, in this case, we do the exact same process, cage-free, that we did with conventional cages. And you know the fertilizer story. It's in higher demand now than ever.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Young.
Thank you all for your testimony this morning. I just love this committee. We learned so much, particularly a city girl from Detroit. Never have these conversations, unlike some of my colleagues. And so one of the things I was curious about when we talked about controlling disease, and you said it's us, it's the humans that can bring the disease. So I want to know, where are we getting it from to be able to contaminate your farms?
Want me to
Sure.
take that one? Okay.
Yeah, Doc, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. I was with MDARD for 25 years as a veterinarian, so we dealt a lot with avian influenza. The type of avian influenza that has caused a major impact is called highly pathogenic avian influenza, and it's found circulating in wild waterfowl primarily. And so what happens is when they are migrating, either in the fall or in the spring, they can deposit virus in their droppings, and there's a lot of virus in a dropping if a bird is infected. So what happens is around the farm, the farmers have two kind of basic areas: a perimeter buffer zone, where they have to let vehicles in and visitors in and people in to work, and then they have the line of separation. The line of separation is really that line when you walk into that poultry house. And so the idea is anything that goes inside that poultry house can't be contaminated with any of that, the droppings from the wild birds. That's primarily the thinking. And our producers have done a really tremendous job. If you look at the number of birds that have been found infected in Michigan, it's just as much as other states, but yet we've managed to keep it out of our houses. So we've had one turkey flock that was infected, and they did a really good job of biosecurity, so it's tough to keep out.
Okay, thank you for that. I know when we had testimony from the cows that provide the milk, and then there was a follow-up question, so after they're done with providing milk for us, they become Big Macs, right? So I guess I'm gonna ask the same question for you all. When they're done laying all their eggs, well, do they become chicken nuggets?
Close. They become chicken nuggets for pets.
Okay.
So, yeah, they live a very long time. They'll be generally 2 years old or close to 2 years old when they're fully aged. But yeah, really, that's where our birds end up is pet food.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Nyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to the avian flu, there's been talk about a vaccine coming around there. Is that getting any closer at this point?
Well, so USDA is working on that and looking at vaccine. It's the USDA who will allow states to then choose whether or not to use that vaccine. So there are trade issues. If we do utilize the vaccine, then there's trade issues for international trade. And so there's a lot of decisions to be made there. But certainly, seeing the number of birds that have died from this disease, I think everybody is in favor of vaccinating those birds to protect them. So I do think we'll see that come. I don't know when, whether it'll be this year or next year. But ultimately, the state veterinarian here in Michigan will have that authority to determine whether or not that can be utilized in the state.
If Chair may, I'd like to add on a couple more questions.
You may.
Thanks. Yeah, give us a geographical area of, customers and people that you cover, as far, where do your eggs go? That's not exclusively Michigan, I'm assuming.
No, not exclusively Michigan, a lot in Michigan, but we do take a lot out of the state. That's one of the things we're proud of is we take a lot of corn and soy that's produced in the state. We convert it into eggs, and we use some of those in Michigan, but a lot of those leave the state. We will go to California, Arizona every week. Right now, we do a lot of eggs out east. We're building a farm in Pennsylvania as we speak to kind of service the east coast. So, yeah, eggs move a little further. Eggs, as you could see from one of the previous slides, they're produced in the grain belt where there's a lot of grain. You produce the eggs. It takes about 3.5 pounds of grain to make a dozen eggs. So we want to produce the eggs close to where the grain is grown. But yeah, we go all across the southeast, the east, and even west, believe it or not.
Thank you. That answered both of my questions. Thanks.
Representative Pice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First question is, I saw in one of the slides it said Ohio expired, and so I was wondering about that. My other questions were if you could define cage-free, because it seemed to me that when you were talking about organic cage-free, that they had access to outside, but the ones that aren't organic don't. And I was wondering also about the square footage of cage-free. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about Ohio, or do you want me to? You can. So, Ohio's is expired because I mentioned that there were still some states figuring it out, and I don't know the actual current status of Ohio, but I know they're still working on what their plan's going to look like. I don't know a lot more about it than that. I don't think there's anything imminent there. that they, like Michigan, where we will, there's a hard and fast rule, we will be cage-free. As far as the space, and apologize for some of the jargon, we use some of the things interchangeably with the square footage and everything else. So cage-free, we operate under several different certifiers, but United Egg Producers, which is a trade group for the eggs in the country, we operate under their standards as well, and they say 144 square inches per bird, and then like 4 linear inches of feed space, a certain amount of nipples, a certain amount of scratch area, roosting, perching, and quiet, dark areas to lay their eggs, and a plethora of other standards that happen. As I mentioned with the different states and the different rules, there's just nuances to different states and what their rulemaking might look like. And then within all of that, there are some differences between organic rules, cage-free rules, and then some of the other things that might look like pastured eggs or something like that. So there's different rules that go with each one of those. But generally speaking, cage-free is 144 square inches. And then when you go to the organic level, that's when the outdoor access comes into play.
May I, Madam Chair?
Yes.
So 144 square inches per bird for cage-free, non-organic, but they don't see the light of day? Like, I noticed there was a window in one of the slides, but you had said that was for the organic. So if they're not organic, does that mean the facility does not have windows? And no other,
Right, that's correct. They would have
Okay.
access to free roaming for the whole house. So the house is tall. The houses these days are 30-some feet high with like a giant jungle gym is a little bit what their system looks like. And they're able to roam amongst that freely. And then, like I said, some standards of cage-free, they would not have outdoor access, correct.
okay. And how do you harvest the, I forget what it is, basically feces or fertilizer, I'm sorry, that's the word, yes.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
we create a system that's built around their natural behaviors. So what things they like to do, they like to dust bathe, they like to scratch. So all those areas are in there. We even heat the floor so that the floor of the building is warm for them to scratch and dust bathe in. Those are all the natural things that they get to do. The system itself, though, we like them then to go inside the system. That's where they find their food, their water, and then they'll find a darkened area. Basically, it's a curtained-off area where they will lay their eggs. The eggs will still roll out to a belt. Nobody's going in there and gathering them. So then the eggs go. And also inside that system, because when they're eating is when they generally do their business, there's a belt underneath that collects that, takes that away, and then it goes through the process that we were talking about earlier, where it basically then becomes a fertilizer.
Thank you.
Representative Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. I was at your open house or something a month ago, and that was very great and informative. Question regarding the cage-free here in Michigan by next year and how your locations are that way now. For the other states that you guys operate in, are you having those facilities be designed to be cage-free as well in the event that those states expand with laws like that?
Yeah, that's great. Actually, we started converting in 2005. That was the last caged house we built. We believed in cage-free, and we believed that it was where the market was going, but we believed it was the right thing to do for the birds. So all of our operations outside of this state are already cage-free. And in Michigan, we're down to, I think it's the last 8% or so that will get finished up next year, be converted, and then we will be 100%. So we're like 92% of our Michigan houses today are there.
Wonderful. I have one more quick question, if I may. And I'm just curious, we're dairy farmers, so my brain kind of goes this way. I would like to know an average of how many eggs are produced by all of your farms in a day. roughly?
Yeah, about 9 million.
Can you say that one more time?
9
Yeah.
million.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work with everything.
Representative Reingans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions following up on some of the questions that others have asked. So Vice Chair Nyer had asked about the vaccine and avian influenza, and you keep talking about trade issues. Is it that some other countries won't accept our eggs if they were laid by birds with vaccine?
It more impacts the turkey growers, I think, and you can correct me if that impacts the eggs as well, but a lot of our turkey products go to other countries.
Okay.
And so if a vaccine is used, even if it's not used in the turkeys, it's used in the eggs, the countries still may not allow that movement in.
Okay, and it's not that the U.S. wouldn't allow vaccinated chicken or eggs to come into the U.S.?
Well, we don't really bring in anything from countries that have been using the vaccine as well. And so this is just the vaccine for high-path avian influenza. And the concern with the vaccine is that you can hide the virus. So, you know, if it's low enough level, it could be present, but you wouldn't know if you're using a vaccine. That's the concern that the countries have with trade. Sometimes they use it for political reasons as well.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, because I was with Rep. Schmidt and some others when we went and did the visit last month, and the videos that you showed were very useful, so it might be helpful if you could share the links with our committee, just because it illustrated literally some things that you're talking about, including the fertilizer video. And then as far as, so when we were there, the person who was speaking was really pushing the vaccines and hoping that we could have those be used more. So I was just surprised by that in that moment. And then the other question I had to follow up on Rep. Vanderwall's question was about the fertilizer that you produce. Is it 100% of the droppings get used for that, or do you use any of the droppings for like on-site energy production or anything like that?
No, 100% get converted. We have looked at energy production with ours, but they have such a great value for their nutrient value for growing more food that it was an easy decision to stay on the making them into a useful, stable, storable fertilizer product.
Okay, great, thank you.
Representative Beerline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question about your inputs. Like, I know feed costs. So as we've saw the graph, you had a lot of birds come out of production at the same time. Food costs, your feed costs are going up. So how has that changed since just say like 2019 as we've seen those kinds of things go?
That's a great question, and we're typically high input costs. Corn and soy is the two main ingredients that make up our chicken feed. Typically, when they're high, egg prices are high, and that doesn't always fall true. Last year, we had an exaggerated case of that because of the egg shortage. Grain prices are coming off a little bit now. Egg prices are coming off. They kind of follow each other a little bit, just perpetually. As a company, we sell precious little on that. We do most of our sales that are on some sort of cost-based, where the input costs of the corn and soy are on are fixed to the cost of the egg in the end. That way, what it does is it takes out the highs and the lows. So it makes price averaging a lot more predictable for our company and for all of our customers. So the prices just don't move that much. Okay.
Representative Diefendorf.
Yes, I was just wondering how big the pasture-raised market is in as opposed to the cage-free market, and if it's growing or staying pretty stagnant.
I don't know exactly how big the pasture-raised market is. Both are growing. Cage-free is growing exponentially. It for sure is a small piece of it today, but I would say they're both growing, but cage-free at a faster pace. Thank you.
Representative Young?
I was just wondering, could you all share with us, I don't want to take for granted, at least not for me, what the importance of going cage-free really is in terms of the health benefits for humans? I understand the animal welfare, you guys, like, we're here to serve the bird. But in doing that and making certain that they are being raised in the best conditions possible, how does it actually translate to being better for us?
You want to take it?
Why don't I start and then you can
Okay.
pick up? The egg is not any more or less nutritious in a cage-free environment. And really, I'll let Herb talk more about this, but the concern can be if eggs are laid on the floor, the birds decide not to use their nest boxes, then there can potentially be more contaminants on the eggs, but they're washed. So in general, there's no nutrition difference in the egg.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. They really, nutritionally, they aren't different. And they are treated the same through the processing where they're washed and graded and they're put in the right cartons for whatever size they are. Yeah, we have a few rebellious chickens that lay their eggs where they're not supposed to. We leave little Post-it notes around and things like that, what they should be doing. And some still don't. But it's largely but nutritionally, they're the same.
That's so interesting because I guess there's different points of view on that. I was just Googling some stuff and they're like, oh, these are better. You're going to get more such and such. And I'm like, really? I'm going to ask the experts that are right here before us. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course. Rep. Coffia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. So I guess I was listening for, you're running a business, right? And so revenue streams, I was listening and I think I heard 3, the eggs themselves, the waste, the fertilizer, and then the chickens later in their lives becoming animal feed. Are there other revenue streams or have I heard them all?
No, I think far and away the egg is the largest. It's what we're there to do. The litter, we call it typically because that's in its dry state. It's the feces, is the second biggest, and it was our goal to make a good product out of that. And the number one motivation there was to be not a nuisance for our neighbors. So when you dehydrate it and you process it so quickly like we do, you then become a good neighbor. And that was really our motivation. So it is a product that we sell, but it's a very small piece of it. And the aged out hen is basically a non-existent piece of revenue. Our chickens are very different than the chickens we eat from from the grocery store or Kentucky Fried Chicken. I said we serve the bird. Our joke is, what we don't serve it like KFC does. We take care of her for a long period of time. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, just to clarify whether there were any additional streams of revenue or if those are the 3, and obviously, like you said, the egg is far and away the moneymaker. Got it. Thank you.
We're going to wrap up with Representative Pice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We haven't talked about the personnel that work these farms. So you said you had about 1,000 workers, about 10 million chickens or hens. I know that other farms are somewhat dependent on migrant labor, and I'm wondering to what extent egg producers are for that, if it's how it's affected by workers. I'm wondering if you offer housing for those workers, and I'm wondering the types of jobs also that they do. Thank you.
There's several questions in there. Sorry. And the vast majority of our employment group that is either taking care of hens, working in the processing plants where we're packing eggs or loading trucks and doing all those types of things. I will share the video that was mentioned, and that'll show a little bit more about what the jobs might look like. in our world. So the vast majority of our folks that work at our farms are from the area. We do kind of, like everybody, we have to reach out to whatever pools we can to, it's always a challenge for us. And we were talking this morning about one of the things that's been quite successful for us is just working through some of the visa programs that are available to us today, whether they be J visas or TN visas or different types of things. And in those cases, we do hire or we do provide housing for at least start up a period of time so folks can get acclimated and things like that. So yeah, we're kind of an all of the above approach when it comes to labor, and it seems like we always have jobs available, and we've been growing, and cage-free does take more work than conventional does. So it takes more workers, more labor.
Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. It was excellent. I'm not saying excellent, I'm saying excellent. Again, we really appreciate hearing about our food source. There being no further business before this committee and seeing no absent members, we will stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.